Some people take issue with the doctrine of original sin insofar as we inherit a punishment for Adam's sin. So, is there some injustice on the part of God in punishing us for the sin of Adam? All right, the accusation is, I personally didn't eat the fruit. I didn't disobey God in the beginning, so why should I be punished for somebody else doing that? Frank Sheed offers two responses to this in Theology and Sanity. First, he notes that we have no right to supernatural life at all. Okay, the habitual sanctifying grace that Adam enjoyed before the fall is something so beyond human nature that we cannot possibly claim to be entitled to it. And if we don't have a right to it, then by definition, it's impossible for God to be unjust by not giving that to us. Okay, you can't be accused of injustice for not giving somebody something they're not owed. He also notes that we don't even have a right to receive a perfect human nature. Okay, we can't exist without a nature, and we can't earn anything before we exist. In other words, because our existence itself is a gift that we can't possibly earn before we exist, we're not entitled to anything, okay? Let alone a perfect human nature. So there's nothing unjust, again, about God allowing us to inherit a damaged human nature as a consequence for Adam's sin. But one might object further. If God is going to bring us into existence out of nothingness, isn't it only fair or just that he should give us what we need to be happy? And doesn't the fact that we have a damaged human nature and we lack sanctifying grace prevent us from achieving happiness? And again, there are two responses. So the first point is that even with a damaged human nature, it is still possible to achieve happiness in this life. In the sense of a blessedness, okay, the state of, say, a virtuous pagan. All right. In other words, natural virtue is something we can develop on our own without the help of sanctifying grace and achieve some state of natural bliss from that. Okay. So we're not doomed to misery in this life, even without sanctifying grace and a corrupted human nature. The second point is that we're not automatically condemned to eternal misery even if we die without sanctifying grace. Now, it's true that without sanctifying grace, we will be excluded from the beatific vision. So, if you die without sanctifying grace, you're not going to experience heaven because you're not going to have the power to experience the direct vision of God. That's something that's beyond the capacities of the human person without sanctifying grace. Okay. However, that deprivation, as Ludwig Ott points out in Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma, is still compatible with a state of natural bliss. Now, he's talking specifically about unbaptized infants, but if you read Dante's Inferno, in the first circle of hell, we find the virtuous pagans. And they're in a sort of limbo state where they're not experiencing the beatific vision, but they're not experiencing sensible pain in hell. They're sort of in this state of natural happiness, natural virtuous happiness. Okay. The second point is something that Vatican II really developed. So we read in First Timothy 2:4 that God wills all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. What we get from this is that God offers to all the grace necessary to eventually experience the beatific vision, even if you die completely ignorant of Christ and his church. All right, even if you have no opportunity in this life to experience the life of sanctifying grace, if you follow the dictates of your conscience and moved by grace, live a good life, a life similar to that of the virtuous pagans, then the way of salvation is open to you. God is going to be drawing you closer and closer to himself. And the possibility of experiencing the beatific vision is still open to you. So, in summary, because we don't have a right to either sanctifying grace or to a perfect human nature, there's nothing unjust about God allowing us to be punished for Adam's sin by inheriting a nature that's damaged and deprived of sanctifying grace. Furthermore, even given that state into which we're born, God still provides the possibility of true happiness on a natural and supernatural level to everybody in this life and or at least the next, even if you don't hear the gospel in this life.